Survival rules, fleeing the deadly wilderness. All of us have heard these words before. I never believed in the supernatural until it happened to me. Now I assert that there are strange things in this world, and I retract everything I've said. I, on the other hand, have always believed in entities beyond human comprehension, things that transcend the limits set by this harsh universe. Sudden noises in the night or things appearing unexpectedly from above, all of it makes someone like me constantly question the existing principles of reality. Sometimes it's fascinating to imagine what this world would be like if these forces were more prevalent or openly present before us. Could humanity coexist peacefully with them? As a middle-aged man, I always dream of the day humanity can compromise with those supernatural entities, so they can help us advance further on the path of intellectual development for our entire species. We have the right to dream, don't we? Because anyone sober-minded understands that if humanity can't even get along with itself, how can it reconcile with things it doesn't even fully comprehend? That scenario, I'm afraid, is unlikely to materialize as an optimist might hope. I live in a small cabin far from the city but not completely isolated. To be honest, I lack both the knowledge and skills for farming. Why would someone like me, who believes in ghost stories, move to live alone in a wild, desolate forest? That's a perfectly valid question. Not all supernatural entities are malevolent, right? And that question becomes even harder to answer after I tell you about my situation. In simple terms, it's complicated and terrifying too. But above all, it's complicated. The forest I live in isn't mine, not at all. Only a fool would think so. In fact, it doesn't belong to any of my so-called neighbors out here. This forest belongs to Peril. In Latin, that means danger. Of course, that name doesn't explain the dozens of questions racing through your mind right now. Allow me to clarify, at least as much as I can. First, I don't know what Peril looks like. Anyone who gets a glimpse of his true form ends up high in a tree, skinned alive. No joke. Curious about Peril's appearance? Fine, but the price is becoming a decorative specimen in a biology lab. I named him Peril because that's what he represents. Once you know what he looks like, you have less than 30 seconds to live, not even half a minute before your fate is that of a human slug. The police once searched here for missing city folks after enough pleading. Not that they tried very hard. All I can say is Peril isn't a clumsy killer. He's excellent at covering his tracks. Those bodies don't hang from trees for long. I didn't utter a word to the police. Better that than to provoke Peril. But if anyone plans to live here, they must follow the rules, unless they enjoy being a temporary Halloween exhibit. For those who don't live here but foolishly decide to camp or explore, I have a separate list for you. Don't print it out and carry it with you. Read it once, understand, and remember it well. You'll know why in a moment. No more rambling. These are the instructions for those who want to live here and avoid a gruesome death. May God have mercy. Please note, sometimes the rules overlap and contradict each other. That's intentional. Rule 1, *, you must not stay outside the forest for more than 3 hours. Prepare and remember to bring a time-tracking device. This rule does not apply to non-residents. Rule 2, * when moving through the forest, if you hear the sound of 4 branches breaking in quick succession, immediately look down at the ground and do not look anywhere else. Maintain this for exactly 3 minutes, no more, no less. Count silently if necessary. Rule 3, * if you encounter any skinned bodies hanging from trees, absolutely do not scream, react strongly, or attempt to report it. Trust me, you don't want to share the fate of those idiots who called the police. And for God's sake, don't be foolish enough to record or take pictures. Pretend you saw nothing and calmly walk away. I know this isn't easy, but the alternative is far too gruesome. Rule 4, * if you see the police questioning you about any strange or dangerous occurrences in the forest, simply pretend you know nothing. Say that you are just going about your business and promise to report anything unusual if you see it. Rule 5, * if you are inside your cabin and sense a strange presence outside at any time, absolutely do not look out the window, nor should you peek your head out of the cabin. Rule 6, * try to keep your property clean and tidy. Peril seems to prefer desolate places. However, this doesn't guarantee absolute safety, so don't put too much trust in it. Rule 7, * do not try to warn others about Peril, especially if they have already been marked. Doing so will only make things infinitely worse for everyone, including you. So the rules for those brave enough to move here are clear. Now, for the campers, explorers, and casual visitors. Rule 1 asterisk before entering the forest, remember to wear at least one piece of jewelry. Consider it a shield. You wouldn't sneak into a military base without authorization, would you? This is similar. The jewelry doesn't need to have religious significance or be a charm. Rule 2 asterisk if you plan to curse in the forest, absolutely do not direct any profanities at the wildlife or plants. Only aim them at your fellow companions. Sounds impossible? Then it's best to stay home. Rule 3 asterisk specifically for campers. When night falls, you might hear the horrifying screams of the unfortunate souls who fall victim to peril. Do not try to follow the screams to help. It's too late for them, and you will be next if you interfere. Bring as many guns as you want. Try it. I dare you. Rule 4 asterisk also for campers. If you wake up in the middle of the night and hear rustling in the trees or faint singing from afar, absolutely do not leave your tent. This phenomenon can last for hours, so be prepared to adapt if you are unlucky enough to encounter it. Stay near your campfire and remain silent. Rule 5 asterisk keep the landscape intact. Do not pick grass, chop trees, dig holes, or kill any animals. Especially that last one. It's practically a one-way ticket to meeting peril. This rule does not apply to residents when they are simply tidying their property, but hunting is illegal here anyway, so leave your guns at home. That's it, but I also want to add that there are probably many more rules that I haven't discovered yet. Though I don't want to risk finding out about them, I will add more if new situations arise. You might wonder, if you're not allowed to warn others about peril, how dare you post this online? Good question. The answer, dear reader, is simple, because I'm outside the forest, out of peril's reach. I brought my laptop and only typed these lines while sitting in an internet cafe in town. As long as you don't warn anyone else while asterisk inside the forest, you'll be fine. I've done it many times and remain unharmed. But it seems I'm the only one wise enough to realize this, at least for now. Hopefully, this post reaches those brave and motivated people who need more than just the police to handle this. Trust me, I tried calling them when I was outside the forest. The operator was not pleased. I quote, "Please call someone else to tell your ghost stories to. You're wasting my valuable time." Guess the disappearances don't bother them, or maybe they just don't care. You can guess freely. I've watched many people venture in here, campers, explorers, all sorts. All of them clueless when they arrive. It's heartbreaking to see, but it's the truth. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why I don't just move away, to be honest, I don't have a good reason. I can still live almost normally, as long as I follow the rules, even if normal, in this case, is a bit strange. But I have a few short stories about those less fortunate than me people who were either too foolish, too unaware, or simply ignored everything. Sometimes all three. They didn't deserve such a horrific death. Take the first case as an example. A group of teenagers, probably no older than 16. Poor kids. Anyway, these ill-fated friends came here on a camping trip, and as you can imagine, they were incredibly loud, disrespectful to nature and the animals around them. One of the kids even threw a rock at a squirrel in a tree, hitting the poor creature square on. The squirrel fell down and died instantly, and of course, Peril noticed. At the time, I didn't know what was happening. I had left my cabin for a walk, ensuring I'd be back within the allowed 3 hours. I just knew it was still morning. I strolled leisurely along the tree line on the path until I reached an open clearing. This used to be a fairly popular camping spot, but still quite a distance from my cabin. Mostly, it attracted adventurers wanting to try their luck by camping in rumored haunted places. And then I smelled it, the pungent, sickening scent of iron. My heart tightened. I crept cautiously toward the clearing, trying to assess the damage this time. Don't misunderstand, bravery and foolishness are separated by a thin thread. I think I might have crossed that thread. I moved very slowly, trying not to break branches or make any noise, because who knew, Peril might be watching my every move from anywhere in this forest. Getting close enough, I finally saw the grotesque scene before me, a sight capable of making even the most hardened individual's stomach churn with revulsion. Along 3 different tree trunks, 6 bodies hung limply, heads down, nothing but bone and muscle remaining. And there was no blood on the ground, as I said. Peril is very good at cleaning up a scene. That wasn't meant to be funny. As for why I smelled iron but saw no blood, I honestly don't know. But the sight was equally horrific and pitiable. Trying to be optimistic, at least it was me, not the parents of these children, who had to witness this tragedy. If only I could tell them the truth, but then it would be dangerous for them if they came looking for their children and got lost in the forest. They would have to be extremely careful, but how can grieving parents be calm? And that's natural. Trust me, I had to use all my strength to suppress my nausea. No way was I going to vomit in the bushes and risk my life. How did I know they were teenagers if they were butchered like that? Because one of their phones had fallen near their tent. Surprisingly, there's cell service in this forest, but don't try anything. Trust me, he'll know. On the screen was a message from who I assume was one of the boys' mothers. It read, "Happy birthday trip with your friends, Mikey. Enjoy and have a great 15th birthday. Mom and Dad will pick you up if you need anything, just call." My eyes welled up right then, but there was nothing I could do. Almost nothing, and that's what always bothers me. I'm nothing more than a messenger. If only I could do more, I would. At that moment, I knew Peril would soon return to collect the bodies and erase the traces of his massacre. Just one person seeing it is enough. I think that's how he operates. But I won't pretend to understand everything about an entity whose basic form is still a mystery, let alone the dark, twisted, sadistic reasons behind his actions. My only principle is to follow the rules and survive. After staring at the scene for a few more minutes, I went home. When the police came asking about the missing kids, I followed my own protocol, played dumb, only mentioning that I thought I heard some young voices and nothing more. I bet those two cops didn't even bother to take out their notebooks. Just as expected. I digress. Reflecting now, I realize the real reason I haven't fled this place. Why not buy a plane ticket and escape to the other side of the world? A very small part of me seems to enjoy living here. Don't get me wrong, I'm not cold-blooded or masochistic, depending on your perspective. Not at all. It's because of the need to figure out Peril's rules and how he operates that I feel important. I feel I have a purpose. Certainly more so than a boring office job, returning to a dreary apartment, and dying of loneliness and boredom. In a way, to the best of my ability, I'm saving people. I have a hunch this will eventually backfire on me, but at least I'm putting in more effort than others living in this forest and even the local police. You already know that. Trust me, I want to tell the whole world. I want to warn every single person approaching the entrance to this forest to turn back immediately. But then they would die, and I would die too. This is my only option. Next, the second victim I encountered was a woman in her 30s named Paya Dunley. Paya supposedly just wanted a simple, quiet hike along the trail. The only problem, besides her choosing to come here, was her decision to go at night. It's hard to understand why anyone would think that's a good idea. Oh well, I have my suspicions. You'd think the successive disappearances would deter her. Clearly not. Maybe she just didn't do her research before coming. Paya began her night stroll from the entrance and made it about half a mile into the forest, almost exactly where I live. This detail is quite important. Although Paya isn't alive for me to ask what happened, I'm sure there was a scream that woke me in the middle of the night. A frantic scream of despair and terror, clearly hers. I lay still in bed, listening to Paya's wailing and crying. It didn't last long, only about 10 seconds, but for her, it must have felt like minutes, maybe even endless hours. I couldn't move. Not really crying, shivering in fear, no. I just lay there, eyes glued to the bedroom wall as it happened right outside my cabin. Have you ever seen those drawn-out death scenes in horror movies, where the victim screams themselves hoarse as a mad killer brutally murders them? Well, those are nothing compared to this. Almost nothing. I felt like a complete coward, utterly cowardly throughout the ordeal. Everyone has flaws, right? But at that moment, it was as if I was made up of nothing but flaws. Even though I knew trying to help would only make things worse, I could only lie there motionless and listen to that woman die what was probably one of the most horrifying deaths imaginable. I wanted to tell others about the loophole in warning about peril, but I never saw them outside this forest or knew their contact information. As for the people I did try, those who lived here, they weren't willing to risk their lives after hearing my story. You probably think I'm a hypocrite for resenting others for not helping me after what I just told you. I don't blame you for thinking that. It's probably partly true. Paya's incident wasn't the only time I woke up in the middle of the night, not at all. In fact, just last night, I was startled awake by the sound of a branch breaking, less than 5 meters from me. My eyes flew open, my blood ran cold. The sound of breaking branches grew closer to the cabin. No crickets, no owls, no other natural sounds, just a chilling silence in the dead of night. The crisp cracking sounds headed towards the back door. I truly wish I could describe the feeling of my whole body trembling as I heard it, like being a child going into a dark basement alone. Of course, I didn't dare look out the window because I thought my chances of survival were slim, and glimpsing that mysterious, supernatural killer would only hasten my fate. Better safe than sorry. But when I heard a thumping sound, accompanied by a strangely amplified female voice, from behind me, a sound that even state-of-the-art audio technology would struggle to create, that's when I truly thought I was about to meet God. And that Peril wasn't my only concern here. Be quiet, or he'll hear you. I spun around, fists raised in a fighting stance like a boxer ready to receive an attack from the unknown entity. When I saw what was before me, my jaw dropped to the floor. My entire body seemed to be paralyzed, but my mind raced at lightning speed. Standing there was Paya Dunley, but not a flesh-and-blood Paya, rather her ghost. She floated a few dozen centimeters off the ground. Not to mention, I could see right through her as if she were a 3D projection from a cheap sci-fi movie. Thankfully, she didn't look skinned or anything anymore. One of my first thoughts was to yell at her, asking why she didn't warn me about Peril, but then I remembered he probably wouldn't bother killing someone who was already dead. But I was still in danger. Thank God I hadn't been marked yet. That was the only thing keeping me alive. I know you probably have a lot of questions, she said softly, her voice light. Way too many, I replied, backing up a few steps. The room temperature suddenly dropped, making me shiver. Goosebumps covered my skin. I've never been good with cold since I was a kid. And what about I'm sorry? She continued. You know, for letting that thing kill me while you slept soundly in your bed. You can't imagine what it feels like to be skinned alive while still conscious, while still feeling every nerve ending burning. I'd bet any tormented soul in hell that it's worse than being burned alive, but I know you couldn't do anything when you were alone. Her voice softened. How do you know I slept soundly in my bed? I asked. Paya seemed offended that this was my main concern, and indeed, I was a bit insensitive. For those few brief seconds, between being caught and then skinned like a dead animal on someone's lips, I saw you through the window. Saw you open your eyes, just lying there, staring into space. Are you here to haunt me? I snapped. To punish me for what I did, or rather didn't do? What did you expect me to do? I'm not a superhero. No, none of that, but maybe I should be. She paused for a moment. I'm here to help you expose that thing. We have to let the whole world know what's happening. I was silent. A question formed, but not just a question. There was excitement too, plus a bit of genuine relief. Honestly, what about all the other ghosts? Peril's victims? You call him that? She giggled, raising a ghostly hand to cover her mouth. It's inconvenient to keep calling it that thing, don't you think? I retorted. Well, to be honest, I really like that movie, so it's 50-50. All right, that's enough, I commanded. How do you plan to stop Peril? You don't even live here anymore. I know more about him than you do. You need to be careful with your words or I'll die too, I said. Expose, not stop, but if we find a way, we will. Calm down, I just said I want to help you, she emphasized, giving me an unamused look. Sorry, I stammered. Just a lot of stress, I guess I figured it out, I muttered. Suddenly, she floated gently towards me. The room temperature plummeted again, as if I had just stepped into a freezer. What are you doing? I asked, awkwardly licking my lips. I'm going outside to check for Peril, she replied, without looking back. It doesn't matter if he's near or far. If you're in this forest, he'll get you. He knows I'm here in this cabin right now. As long as I follow the rules, he won't touch me, but that doesn't mean he won't threaten me. What rules? She asked, stopping and turning around. We looked at each other. I adjusted my posture, feeling the answer rise in my throat. The rules, I said quickly, walking over to my bedside table and pulling open the top drawer. The faint creak of old wood, dust flying everywhere from the force. Don't you think it's a bit odd to stay here and make up these rules instead of just leaving? she suggested, crossing her arms emphatically. Well, considering I'm talking to a ghost, no, it's not odd. Besides, I need to figure out everything I can. This situation isn't really suitable for remote work, I replied casually, ignoring her taunt. And if you're not allowed to warn others about peril in this forest, aren't the rules themselves a warning? She challenged. You could say that. I'm posting them online, outside this forest, and talking to you is fine. He can't kill you twice, and since I'm writing them, I'm fine. I can't warn myself. But be careful with your words anyway, I replied softly. Right, okay, she conceded. So that ugly bastard isn't omnipotent, and he's not exactly handsome either. Looking at his face reminds me of. I flinched, my eyes wide with worry. Stop, don't say another word, don't describe him to me, can't risk it, I interrupted. Let me guess, I'm not supposed to tell you what he looks like either, right? Paya asked. Instead of answering, an idea suddenly struck me. I hastily pulled out 2 sheets of the rule list from the bedside drawer. I walked over to Paya and handed them to her. She glanced at me, confused, then skimmed them. A halo of light from her ethereal form surrounded the paper. Apparently she could choose which solid objects to interact with. You just reminded me that I should add another rule to each sheet, I said, not very enthusiastically. And what would that be? She asked suspiciously. I walked to the other side of the bedside table, approached a small desk, and pulled out a pen from the chaos of papers and objects scattered on the dusty oak surface, from worn-out pencils to reused paper clips. Just before touching the pen to paper, I remembered how dangerous it would be to write this rule in the forest. I wasn't sure if it would alert Peril, but I didn't want to risk it. Damn it, I cursed. Can't write it in here, I'll have to wait until I'm out of the forest. It's not worth the risk. Wait, but I thought it was okay, because you're essentially not warning anyone, Paya objected. Listen, I'm still figuring things out. I don't want to take any chances. I've never written any rules in the forest, and unlike you, I still have about half my life ahead of me. I stopped, realizing what I had just blurted out. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Paya simply rolled her eyes, an action that showed she didn't want to waste time on my unintentional slip-up. Listen, ignore everything else. We don't have time to argue here. Out there, people are dying, their loved ones too, and they don't even know it. We're the only 2 and a ghost who can and are willing to help, Paya rattled off. I nodded at her short speech. Paya was right. I had the knowledge and research. She had the abilities and experience. It was great to finally have someone who wanted to expose this truth as much as I did. I wasn't fighting alone anymore. Why do you want to help so much? I asked, genuinely curious about the answer. I have a son, an adopted son, she hesitated. He's 17. He's a good kid, great at sports, loves the outdoors. He's been into sports since he could walk. I'm most proud that he's very smart. Anyway, he wants to come to this forest to challenge himself, to camp for 3 days. He'll be 18 soon, which means his current guardian won't have control over him anymore, and he'll come to this forest. I don't want him to share my fate or the fate of others. I won't let that happen. I bowed my head, stepping towards Paya, intending to place a hand on her shoulder, but then I remembered the obvious. I'm so sorry. So many innocent people have been taken by him. I promise I will ensure your son's safety. At all costs, I announced sincerely. He's my flesh and blood. I hate to think what his biological parents did to him, those bastards. We have to fix this, and we have to do it now. Can you come with me to the cafe? I assume no one but me can see you, right? I'm limited to this forest, like Peril, but I know how we can communicate when you're outside, Paya replied. How? I asked. Paya paused, her eyes, once filled with sorrow, now turned mischievous. I guess you've heard of an Ouija board, right? I frowned, the familiar wrinkles appearing on my forehead. Don't you have to be near me for that to work? And it needs multiple people, I replied, not entirely convinced. Not necessarily. A person who claims to have strong beliefs simplifies the supernatural too much. You only need multiple people when no spirit is communicating and you just want to scare your friends at a party. Trust me, it's a good backup option in case we need to communicate when you're not here. In high school, I used to mess around with these things with my friends. Most spirits don't care about ordinary people, she rattled off. And as before, I rolled my eyes, not because she was wrong. Paya was absolutely right, but because she was rather smug about it. Oh well, I wasn't much better myself. I barely slept that night. The heavy stream of thoughts kept me awake until it was too late. On the other hand, if I had slept, I probably would have just had nightmares, so I don't know what to think about that. The next morning, on my way to the cafe in town, I stopped by a Walmart to buy an Ouija board. An entire aisle was filled with different types of boards. I didn't understand what the difference was, so I simply picked the most normal-looking one. Why Walmart sells these things is also worth questioning. Not wanting to dwell on it, I took one down and brought it to the checkout, along with a few tubs of Ben and Jerry's ice cream, mainly so I didn't look too odd, but also because I needed something to cheer myself up a bit. Things like this are often quite heavy, and ice cream has a way of making anyone feel a little better. Once done, I headed to my next stop, the cafe, not forgetting to double-check that I had both sheets of rules with me. But I also had a copy on my laptop, so even if I lost them, it wouldn't be a disaster. But if someone found them and went into the forest, well, you know what would happen. So maybe I was downplaying the issue, but if they wrote their own rules outside the area, it would be fine, as long as they didn't show anyone else in the forest. Anyway, I sat down at a table and wrote the new rule on each sheet, starting with the one for residents. Hopefully, people would help spread it once it was posted online. But whatever you do, absolutely do not print it out and take it into the forest. Honestly, if someone with real power read this, we'd be labeled as crazy, superstitious fanatics. This has to be on us, the ordinary people. I took out my pen, pulled out the 2 rule sheets, and quickly began, the pen nib gliding lightly over the paper. Rule 8, asterisk, if you are a victim of peril and a wandering spirit in the forest, absolutely do not describe his appearance to the living. You, of course, will be unharmed, but they could be harmed. What are you writing there? A soft, gentle female voice chimed in, the kind of voice you'd expect from a young mother chatting with her newborn. I spun around. A woman, whom I assumed was a waitress, stood there, holding a hot coffee pot. She looked at me curiously, seemingly amused by my scribbled handwriting. Oh, sorry, just work stuff, I lied, quickly flipping the paper face down to hide what I had written. I didn't want her to think I was even stranger than she probably already did. I also hastily shoved the Ouija board next to me, trying to push it further to the right of my seat. Maybe bringing this here wasn't such a good idea after all. You're working so hard, and you haven't even ordered anything yet. What can I get you? She asked politely, emphasizing the coffee pot. She must have been new, as I hadn't seen her here before. I grabbed the menu, quickly opened it, and skimmed it for a few seconds, fooling myself into thinking I'd order something other than my usual. I'll have the bacon and eggs with a large black coffee, I ordered, unable to hide the rush in my voice. She smiled, jotting down my simple order in her pad. I'm Sarah, by the way, she introduced herself. But instead of turning away, she stood there, her friendly smile quickly fading. I froze, not just because I was slightly uncomfortable. The room temperature suddenly dropped sharply, giving me goosebumps. At first, I thought Paya had found a way to leave the forest and come here, but looking around the cafe, I saw no sign of her. Are you okay? I stammered, gripping the edge of my chair and leaning back a bit further. Again, she only frowned more. Her eyes widened, not ridiculously so, but enough to become unsettling. I discreetly scooted to the opposite side. The more I moved, the stiller she stood. No one else in the cafe seemed to notice anything unusual. Everyone continued their conversations, meaning this was my problem alone, and I had to solve it myself. Sarah moved closer, leaning towards me. The heavy scent of perfume wafted into my nostrils, intensifying with each passing millisecond. Her crazed eyes locked onto mine. You'd best be careful. You're not as smart as you think you are. I'll be watching your every move. Just one fatal mistake, and I'll tear every shred of flesh from your body while you scream and beg for death. Don't think I don't know what you're planning. This forest is mine, always has been mine. Sarah's voice didn't change at all as she uttered those horrifying words, not even a bit. Still soft, sweet, and friendly, just like at the beginning. That's what made everything even more terrifying. Sarah, what the hell are you doing? A deeper male voice roared from behind Sarah. She immediately stood at attention, her brutal scowl fading, returning to her initial warm smile. Her eyes darted around as if she had just woken from a daze. Coming, sir, she replied, turning and striding towards the kitchen. A man who looked like the head chef stood in the doorway, his face angry. "Stop messing around and come help me finish these orders," he snapped, gesturing with his left hand. "I pay you to work here, not to play games," he continued, growling. The door closed as he entered the kitchen after Sarah, presumably to scold her further. I made a mental note to tip her extra on my way out. As for me, images of crucifixes and holy water flashed in my mind, but from countless other people's stories, I knew that was a gamble with too low a chance of winning. Worth trying? Probably not. Don't get me wrong, I knew what had just happened was Peril. He was warning me. He knew what I was doing. But because technically I hadn't broken any rules, he couldn't touch me. For now, I was safe. It seemed I was a little wrong about what I said. He could affect things outside the forest, just not very strongly. Still, my heart pounded as my food was served. I wolfed it down quickly, not wanting to linger. Peril was eagerly waiting for an opportunity to make me his next victim, and here I was, foolishly thinking he might have some soft spot for me. How absurd. I started to de-stress with the Ben & Jerry's ice cream I bought on the way home, not even bothering to open the Ouija board anymore. A complete waste of money, but at least the ice cream was good. I parked my car at the forest entrance, gathered everything from the car, and strode towards the tree line to get back to my cabin, clutching the Ouija board box tightly, expressing my annoyance at this useless item. Of course, I was 10 times more alert than usual. I guess the adventurous type would be screaming for me to bring a gun and try to take down that reality-bending entity. As soon as I passed the tree line, all natural sounds ceased. Only the crunching of dry leaves underfoot and the whistling of the wind remained. Never a good sign, especially in my current situation. The birds were always so boisterous here, weren't they? This silence, this wrong and eerie quiet, the stillness of a lurking predator, was anything but relaxing. I kept walking, trying to whistle to reassure myself. Is humanity really this dependent on sound to function normally? Like all my other efforts in this forest, it was useless, especially when I heard the first branch break behind me, then the second, this time much louder. I knew what was coming, who was coming. When the third branch broke, I immediately recalled Rule 2. This was the rule I had spent the most time memorizing because of its high probability of occurring. Rule 2, asterisk when moving through the forest, if you hear the sound of 4 branches breaking in quick succession, immediately look down at the ground and do not look anywhere else. Maintain this for exactly 3 minutes, no more, no less. Count silently if necessary. My eyes were glued to the ground as the 4th branch snapped. It felt as if I could smell Peril's breath on the back of my neck. Although I didn't hear any further sounds after the branches broke, I knew he was there. I hoped I wasn't making a mistake. Not being able to look was almost worse than seeing him, not knowing what that monstrous thing looked like. Counting to 180 is already a tedious task. Now imagine doing it with death literally standing right behind you. Only in this situation is one allowed to complain. Every second felt like a century. Time seemed to slow down. I honestly wondered if, in this situation, time truly was warped. Nothing had ever been more stressful than this. Death was a hair's breadth away, specifically threatening me. Just one glance, one peek, and I was dead. "I smell every trembling beat of your fear," Peril growled, his voice so deep and hoarse it could only be the invention of Lucifer himself. The depth in his voice made my hands shake uncontrollably as I tried to focus on counting. "I will skin every man, woman, and child who dares to set foot in this forest." My legs felt like jelly when he spoke. I had only counted 100 seconds. I still had to hold on for almost another minute and a half. "Your despair is amusing. One day, your flesh will be mine. Those useless rules only help you survive a little longer. Why don't you invite a relative over, sit down, have a drink, and warn them about me? Go on, do it, I dare you. I'm sure they'd be dying to know my true form, just like you pathetic, useless creature." His voice was colder than my blood in this encounter. Even though he found it humorous, he didn't chuckle or let out any demonic laughter. He simply silently savored my fear. If he had a middle finger, he'd definitely be raising it at me right now. I only had 20 seconds left. Soon, it would all be over. Everything would end, and I could continue walking towards my cabin. "Those brats always screamed the loudest when I skinned them," Peril added. "Young men, they scream more intensely than any woman, crying for their mothers as I tear their flesh, inch by inch, and make them watch me peel away their soft, fragile skin from their bones. The way he described it, the way he uttered those words, was so calm and casual, as if he were describing how to make a jam sandwich. The worst part was the images that formed in my mind as he spoke, describing how the victims begged for a merciful death as he tore their flesh, how they writhed and cried, trying to fight back. He wanted me to know every minute detail. But the universe was generous. The 20 horrifying, chilling seconds were over. I lifted my head, letting out a soft sigh of relief. I felt the adrenaline leaving my body, but not quickly. If I wanted to continue, I needed to be smarter. He knew my purpose. He was clearly aware that I was exploiting a loophole, but I couldn't let his taunts deter me. He wanted to break me, force me to surrender, get inside my head, and make me create my own deadly situation. I uselessly tried to dispel the terror that permeated my lungs as I trudged through the tree line. All my fight-or-flight alarms rang out simultaneously. I started to think these rules might not be enough, that my efforts were futile. Who was I really saving? Could I truly expect someone to stumble upon these rules online, memorize them, just in case they came here? What if I made a mistake along the way and became responsible for someone's death? Maintaining optimism in this situation was incredibly difficult, because once you start asking yourself such questions, questions that make you want to give up, your psyche takes a cold shower. However, as I've said, everything in life meets resistance, even if the resistance in this case is a mysterious, violent creature who enjoys giving me a slow, painful death. I quickly reached the cabin. Looking up, I saw Paya standing by the second-story window, the light shining through her translucent form. To be honest, it looked quite ominous, just like a scene from Poltergeist. If it had been anyone else's ghost, I would have turned and fled immediately. This place already gave me enough to worry about. I approached the front door, reached for the doorknob, and it suddenly swung open inward, as if someone was opening it from the inside. The door creaked softly as it moved. "Like it?" I heard Paya's unusual voice drift into my ear from behind. "Just learned this today." I flinched and spun around, seeing Paya floating behind me, a friendly smile on her face as we looked at each other, her face beaming, mine scowling. "Also learned short-range teleportation. Dying isn't so bad, eh?" Paya giggled. "I wish I had cool ghost powers like that," I replied, stepping into the cabin, my mouth dry from the stressful events earlier. "Well, if you mess things up, you will," she retorted sarcastically. "Sounds about right," I shot back, trying to suppress a smile. Despite everything that had happened, I couldn't help but chuckle at her taunt. I just let myself laugh. This feeling was truly a tonic, exactly what I desperately needed, and I finally got it. This moment made me feel like a normal human again, not just a machine analyzing everything in life. As my triumphant laughter began to subside, Paya seized the opportunity. "Remember, you still owe me an apology," she said, crossing her arms as I looked through her ghostly body. "Hey, don't mess up my protoplasm on the floor," I replied, dodging the question, and started to climb the stairs. Paya immediately teleported, blocking my path. I intended to keep going but stopped abruptly. There was no point in trying to force my way through, it would be useless. "What are you doing?" I snapped. "Come on, this isn't the time for games." "Basic object manipulation," she replied. "Now, are you going to apologize for real or not?" "I already did," I groaned, still trying to break free from her hold. "No, you apologized because I told you about my son, not because you lay there comfortably and lazily while I was torn apart," she pouted. "You said it yourself, there was nothing I could do," I yelled back. "Well, that doesn't mean I wouldn't have enjoyed it," she offered a mischievous smile. My lips curled in defeat. My eyes darted between Paya and the adjacent wall, knowing I was stuck between two difficult choices. Of course, she had no ill intent, nor was I in any pain, it was just incredibly inconvenient. "Is a forced apology really an apology?" I asked softly, using a pun to try and escape her grip. "You tell me, when you were a kid, did your mom ever make you apologize for doing something stupid?" she shot back. Another valid point, an argument I couldn't find a way to counter on the spot, so I conceded. After all, it wasn't a huge deal. All right, I grumbled. "I'm truly sorry. I know it sounds fake, but it's the truth. Feeling the suffering you went through is more than enough. Now can you let me go? Fine, she chirped, releasing me. I almost stumbled down the stairs. Satisfied? I have work to do here. Can you let me go? I limped to the edge of the stairs to continue climbing. I went all the way up the stairs and into my room, spread the rule sheets on the bed, and reviewed them carefully, making sure I had done what needed to be done. Stepping into the cabin, I realized the area in front of the house was starting to get quite messy. This was the first thing I prioritized. I quickly recalled the relevant rule. Rule 6, try to keep your property clean and tidy on a regular basis. Peril seems to prefer overgrown places. However, this doesn't completely guarantee your safety, so don't put too much trust in it. As I said, it's not a guaranteed safety, but you have to try your best, right? I kept telling myself this. This time, I hesitated as I stepped out of the cabin. Earlier, inside the house, I hadn't felt Peril's strong presence, so I could step out without breaking Rule 5. Furthermore, I knew he was watching me. I hadn't been marked yet, but I knew he wanted to mark me. He was lurking, casually waiting for me to slip up. Initially, I thought it was because I was currently the biggest threat to his mysterious nature, that I had more information about him than anyone else, apart from his appearance, of course. But who knows what clues I was still missing? I even felt a little smug that I was such a thorn in the side of such a malevolent entity, though I wouldn't dare admit that to his face. However, I half-jokingly asked Paya if she could use her teleportation abilities to help me clean up outside. Of course, she refused, saying I had to take care of myself. Again, she was right. Integrity and self-reliance are things everyone needs in life. I took the rake and began clearing the leaves that covered the lawn, picking up all the scattered broken branches, and even dusting the wooden deck in front of the house. Good thing I did, because it was starting to look like it had just snowed. As I tidied up, minding my own business, I heard a continuous whooshing sound, a sound familiar to anyone who watches action movies. Looking up, I saw the source of the sound, a helicopter gliding over the area. Wanting to know what was happening, I stopped what I was doing and moved to a less dense area of trees, especially since the sound was very close. The aircraft was flying much lower than usual, only about 30 meters above the treetops. It was pitch black, but that wasn't the only thing. It was equipped with machine guns on the front, plus a few missile launchers. As a military-grade vehicle, it was definitely built for combat. That much was obvious. But what truly caught my attention were the people inside, clad in armor, automatic weapons, night vision goggles on the sides. Military, I don't know what to call them. They didn't resemble any military personnel I'd ever known, not even a little bit. They looked like they belonged to a much more secretive, shadowy force. I looked for a symbol on the aircraft or their equipment, but saw nothing before the group passed out of sight. Had my posts caught their attention? Were they some kind of shadowy government faction sent to deal with Peril? I wasn't sure. While I hoped the government would help me, this was the real world, that only happened in fiction. I continued tidying up, finding it difficult to focus after what I had just witnessed. Too many questions, and I knew there would be no answers, or so I thought. At this rate, I sensed something coming, something very bad, and it would happen very soon. I just didn't know what it was. "Hey," Paya's voice echoed from near the front door. "Get inside, you have to see this." I dropped the rake and obeyed her, rushing up the steps, through the front door, striding to the other end of the ground floor, where my kitchen was, and then froze when I saw something terrifying outside the back window. "I think they're here for you," Paya leaned in, delivering her pessimistic words. "I'll try to hold them off, but I don't." "No," I interrupted. Beyond the trees behind the cabin, there were about 9 people dressed in those shadowy black outfits, carrying military-style weapons. And like the people in the helicopter, they were fully armed, assault rifles in hand, looking down their sights, scanning the area. "Remember, gentlemen," the leader said to his team, "only use lethal force when absolutely necessary. We need him alive." Not only that, but each person held a strange, mobile phone-like device in their hand. They used these devices to scan patch after patch of trees. The device beeped continuously, softly but urgently. "Oh my God, damn it," I stammered, clutching my head, gripping my hair. My composure vanished as I frantically searched my mind for a solution. "Go, you have to go now," Paya screamed urgently, her voice echoing through the house. I ran upstairs, grabbed the rule sheets but left my laptop behind. I didn't want to be tracked if I managed to escape. Coming back downstairs, I didn't dare run out the door. They were starting to encircle the area. I would be caught or subdued instantly if I stepped out. "Paya," I whispered loudly, "can you teleport me to the edge of the forest, at least far enough for me to run to my car?" "I don't know, I've never teleported anyone," she stammered, her tone showing she wasn't sure of herself. Before I could finish, the front door was kicked open. 3 of the shadowy soldiers from outside immediately entered, guns pointed at me. One held up the strange device they used to scan the trees. Paya raised her 2 ghostly hands into the air. All 3 soldiers were immediately thrown straight up to the ceiling by her teleportation power, their backs hitting the wood, breaking a few planks loose. 3 more quickly flooded into the cabin, replacing their unconscious comrades. "She's there, get the ghost vacuum," the soldier on the left yelled, pointing his device towards Paya. It beeped much faster than before, a type of alarm that seemed to have detected Paya. The soldier in the middle reached for his belt and with incredible speed threw something across the floor before Paya or I could react. A flash of white light blinded the entire room like a modern flashbang grenade. Paya screamed, her spirit being pulled towards the device despite her fierce resistance. Her efforts were completely useless. The device was too powerful, and she was nothing more than a speck of dust to a vacuum cleaner. I raised my hands high, the rule sheets falling to the floor on either side of me. The soldiers yelled at me to kneel, and in this situation, I had no other choice. I obeyed. "Take him down," one commanded. "The director wants to talk to him." "Wait, you don't understand," I argued. "Actually," the soldier in the middle spoke, "we understand more than you think." And with that, he kept a straight face, swung his rifle back, and slammed the butt of the gun into my forehead so hard that I fell backward, unconscious. I don't remember what happened next until I woke up in a strange, stark white room with no windows. The place looked clean and sterile, like a spaceship. No stains, no marks, except for the table in the middle of the room where I was sitting at one end. The door to the room was as white as the ceiling, floor, and walls. The only reason I knew it was there was because someone walked in. A woman, looking to be in her 40s, with blonde hair neatly tied in a ponytail and a pair of glasses on her face. She sat down, smiling, a file folder in her left hand. I forgot to mention, she was also wearing a lab coat. "Where am I?" I growled, trying my best to move, but my hands were cuffed to the chair. "Hello, Mr. Lin," the woman replied coldly, her tone like a mother welcoming a child she never expected. "Are you going to answer my question?" I demanded. "Are you government people or something? Did you read my online posts? Because this isn't a very nice way to help people." I complained, gesturing to my handcuffs. "Ah, yes, we did read those posts," the woman replied. "The director and I are very grateful for all the wonderful information you've provided us." "What the hell is a director?" I yelled. "Telling you now wouldn't make any sense. No name would," she replied. "So, doctor, I assume you're a doctor. Can you tell me what you did with Paya?" I demanded, still passively aggressive. "We had our paranormal research department perform a ritual. She has been sent where she needs to be, no longer on this planet. That Ouija board you bought also came in handy. We'll analyze it and use the materials for future projects. Could be quite good as a weapon if used correctly," she replied calmly. "What do you want from me? To shut me up, right?" I roared. The woman gave a cynical smile, almost softening at my hostile questions. "Oh, trust me, we have the situation completely under control. I just want to let you know that your problem will be solved. I guarantee it," she said, her voice hardening. "He's been on your radar for a long time, and now you're finally doing something about it. Before, you just sat around all day doing experiments. My God," I couldn't contain my rage. "People are dying, and you're sitting here in this air-conditioned building playing with chemistry like Legos." Before the woman could reply, the door burst open. A soldier with the same equipment as before poked his head in, his eyes now covered by what I assumed were night vision goggles. "Dr. West, the director wants the green light to deploy Subject 16A on this case. He's getting impatient," he reported. "I already told that idiot the plan. And maybe I should mention he also needs a damn hearing aid," she snapped. "Understood, ma'am," he replied quickly, exiting the room and slamming the door shut, not even waiting for her to finish scolding him. You have two choices here, the woman, now known to me as Dr. West, declared. We have seen firsthand your intelligence, the way you research things, ask the right questions, and go through so much intellectual effort. My superiors and I too are pleased with you. Well, mostly them. Personally, I don't find you that impressive. This isn't what I think it is it? I asked slowly, ignoring the jab at my intelligence. You understand what I'm talking about more than anyone. Don't play dumb, because I know that's one of your skills. You said it yourself, she said, her previously detached demeanor now shifting to a much more aggressive look. You're not the fighting type, but not always does it require brute strength. I'm authorized to offer you a job as a researcher here, researching and analyzing unimaginable creatures and entities. You'll be very well paid, I promise. Imagine what you could do with the state-of-the-art facilities we can provide you, she continued, glancing over the documents in her file as if she were reading from a script, which in fact she was. And what's my other option? I asked, already guessing the answer. To put it bluntly, we'll kill you. A bullet to the head, or we could turn you over to Peril, the name you gave that entity, right? So I either work for them or die. This was probably the outcome anyone could have predicted. Obviously, if I take this job, I'll have to keep everything secret, right? I asked. Good, you understand. That's all that's required. But what you've posted online can stay there. It's a tool we use quite often, more than you'd think. I sat there, blank, staring at the wall behind her, beginning to weigh my options. On one hand, I didn't want to die. Accepting would be a way to continue helping others, but from the shadows, which would be much better than my current situation. That was a huge plus. Furthermore, it wasn't like I had a family at home to leave behind. On the other hand, I didn't trust this woman, nor did I trust most of what she said. So vague, who wouldn't find this organization suspicious? It didn't seem like a legitimate government agency, but that didn't mean it was entirely outside the realm of possibility. Not to mention, doing so would go against quite a few of the principles of integrity I had set for myself, betraying my own beliefs. You said you'd resolve the situation with Peril, I asked, breaking the silence that filled the room. Yes, the doctor replied, a hint of impatience in her expression. The consequence of my deliberately prolonging the conversation was now evident in her face. And how do you plan to do that? He's a monster, a demon, something that doesn't belong in this world. I don't even know what he is. How do you kill something like that? Do you have holy water squirt guns? Dr. West scoffed, slowly leaning forward, resting her elbows on the table. That information is classified. It doesn't concern you, at least not at this time. The door was pushed open again, interrupting the exasperated woman. The same soldier as before poked his head in, his eyes now obscured by what I assumed were night vision goggles. The team is en route. Subject 16A is in the transport truck, and the fully equipped team will be back in no more than a few hours, he said, his demeanor hurried and his words rushed. All right, go, stop blabbering, West yelled at him. Good heavens, do you need an invitation? Get to work, eliminate the target, and shut up. The soldier complied instantly, vanishing and slamming the door behind him. West turned back to me, rubbing her forehead in extreme annoyance. Are you going to tell me what 16A is? I asked, narrowing my eyes with the message. I want an answer, and I want it now. Listen here, kid, she snapped, only to be cut off immediately. I agree, I stated bluntly, but I have one condition, I continued after a brief pause. Actually, a few conditions, but they won't be difficult for you, considering what you've said so far. West leaned back in her chair, so exasperated by my antics that she was almost ready to give up. You're not in a position to make demands, but go ahead and say it, she replied. I know you have information about her. I mean, you're supposed to be smart, right? You must have done a lot of research on this, so I only have one request. Pia Dunley, the ghost girl you performed that ritual on. I want you to find her adopted son and anonymously provide enough money for him to finish college. Dig through your files, ask Honey what to do, whatever it takes. And I promise I'll accept your offer and play no tricks. I'll work here until I die, I rattled off. Dr. West leaned forward, an expression of "You're not serious, are you?" on her face. Her hands were clasped in front of her. And, I continued, I want the families of all the victims to be properly compensated. I'm willing to contribute my own money and deliver it myself if necessary. You can keep secret what actually happened. I know you like things shadowy, so that can be arranged. That can be arranged, West replied slowly, flipping through some papers in her file. But I'm still not the ultimate decision-maker in these matters. But I will try to discuss it with my superiors if that's what it takes to finally get your cooperation and to get you to stop talking. But if you have any intention of revealing even half a word, I assure you, I will personally see to it that your death is as painful as possible. Perhaps even conducting a few experiments on your pain tolerance before turning off the lights. The way you're saying it doesn't sound like agreement, I said, tilting my head to emphasize my point. All right, I'll discuss it with my superiors, but know that a portion of that money will be deducted directly from your salary for 5 years, the doctor growled. That's fine. Do you honestly think I expect you to be generous out of altruism? Just kidding, I remarked sarcastically. The door to the room opened again. A man about my age, impeccably dressed in a suit, walked in. He stopped right in the middle of the table, between Dr. West and me. His suit was perfectly tailored, as pristine as this room. I swear I couldn't see a single wrinkle in the fabric. There you are, the one we've been keeping a close eye on, he said, offering a fake smile. Pleased to meet you. I'm Ted, the director of operations here. My eyes quickly darted back and forth between the two of them. Everything was happening too fast, too many decisions, too little time. While I didn't truly want to work for them, I knew accepting would not only allow me to continue helping others, but the families of Peril's victims would also get what they deserved. As for Paya, I wasn't too sad. Having her around was comforting, but at least now she was far away and no longer trapped here. In the end, that was a good thing. I suppose I should also thank them for using their resources to eliminate Peril, even though they should have done so much sooner. I turned back to Ted, or rather, the director. His welcoming demeanor seemed more genuine than Dr. West's, but there was still that underlying sense of deceit. We stared at each other. I let out a long sigh before uttering two words that would change my life forever. I'd agree. Ted's smile was brighter this time, his joy more authentic. Good, he paused for emphasis. Welcome to the organization.